people that come, they're so nice. They're just amazed at what I have. They enjoy it. So they'll bring relatives back or their kids back, and they really, I figure they must really enjoy it. Otherwise, they wouldn't bring people back. So that's a good consolation. My husband, he called it Antique Farm. Greibrok Antique Farm, yeah. He just did it for his own good. He had fun doing it, so it's okay. I'm Dorothy Greibrok from Austin, Minnesota. It was Mrs. Carlisle Greibrok. Now it's Dorothy Greibrok. He was never called Carl. It was always Carlisle. No nickname or anything. And I never even heard of the name before I met him. I have a brother named Carl, but no Carlisle. He was a plasterer in the 50s and 60s when they plastered homes, and he just had the knack for it. And he plastered quite a few homes in Albert Lee and different ones around. It was right after World War II, so there was a lot of building. So he was pretty busy till about in the 70s, and then plastering kind of went out. We bought the farm in 1962, so it's a long time ago, and it was just an old farmhouse built in about 1890. And my husband, he decided to redo it, and he just added on, 16 times. And then in the 90s, he got with the tractors. It just gave him something to do. He didn't do it for other people, he just did it for himself. We were farmers, but didn't have any livestock, so it was winter work. He'd go to toy shows, and he had fun talking to the dealers, and then he got into enjoying it. And then he just added on to the house, because he'd bring stuff home, and I said, well, where are you going to put that? Well, I'll find a place. So then he'd build a place. It worked out really well because they'd be building in the summertime, and in the wintertime they'd be ready for plastering. And then he had spare time. So it worked out really good. Back in the 70s and 80s, crocheting doll dresses was quite a thing. I learned to crochet when I was about 5 years old, so it was a fun thing for me to do. He went to quite a few toy shows that were going through at that time, and I'd go along, but I'd take my crocheting along and sit in the lobby of the motel or something. Although we did go on a cruise one winter, and my husband said, I have one request, do not take your crocheting along. He liked to trade tractors, and so one of his, I suppose, kind of buddies came here and he showed him the toys, and he enjoyed it, and then he brought friends, and it was just word of mouth then for a long time. And then that's when we started giving tours. We've had every state come through. It's hard to believe, but there was a lot of buses back in the 90s. He enjoyed doing it, and he just had the knack for it. He took them through, and they enjoyed talking to him because he knew more or less where he'd got some of the toys, because some of them are really old and kind of unusual. So he had a lot to talk about, and this was good because it gave him something to do. His health wasn't that good. He'd always had high blood pressure, so I think this really helped. A couple of years it was really busy. I think 5,000 people come through. Sometimes we'd have 2 or 3 buses come through. It was a full year. We just kept busy all the time. Back then, we tried to keep it for one bus, which would be about 40 or 50 people. And even sometimes they'd cater in dinner and have dinner here. And we did have a place outside with a big table, so they could eat outside if it was nice. Altogether, I think we've had about 50,000 people come through. Some can go through in an hour, and some can take 2 or 3 hours. It kind of depends upon, you know, what you're interested in. And not so much anymore, but we had a lot of 2nd and 3rd graders that would go through for their field day, and then they'd write letters back, thank you notes back, and they were, you know, just so nice. This one little boy, he wrote back and he said, well, I really liked your house, but I think you got enough stuff. Don't buy any more stuff. He didn't say junk, he said stuff, so it was okay. At one time he said he had 800, but I think he bought more after that, so I'd say about 900 tractors. And then he got into cars. He wasn't going to buy cars, just tractors. Well, then he got sick and couldn't go to toy shows anymore, but he got a catalog where they just had cars. So he'd order them and wait for the mailman to come. And he enjoyed that, so I think he's got about 500 cars. They're really interesting because he doesn't have any alike. I even go through it now and I think, where did he get that, you know? You know, he had time to make up a will, but he didn't really say. But I think he'd enjoy keeping it open and have people enjoy it. I like a few tours because it just gives me something to do. And I told my son, because they kind of think it's too much for me, but now they kind of realize, yeah, it gives you exercise. And I said, well, I get a lot of hugs too. So I feel kind of bad if it stopped completely, because it was, you know, one of Carlisle's main things that I don't think he would have even lived as long as he did. I think this really kept him going. He didn't tell me what to do with it after he passed away, but they're in a good place, so they'll probably just stay there.